Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm here to answer some of your guys' CPA related questions. When I asked on Instagram for you guys to give me some questions that you guys had about the CPA exam, I literally got hundreds. So I have a feeling that this might be an ongoing video that we may be doing. And so if you guys have questions that I did not answer in this video, leave them down below. Or of course, I'll probably continue to ask for questions on Instagram. But basically, I wanted to talk a little bit about the CPA exam, and I wanted to know what you guys wanted to know, because as someone who's already taken it, who's kind of finished that journey, a lot of the questions that I may have had in the very beginning, I don't remember anymore. So that's why I asked you guys for your opinion, and hopefully this helps you guys if you guys are studying and all of that. So right now, a couple days ago, I found out that I passed my very last CPA exam. So I'm officially a CPA, which is super exciting and honestly hasn't hit yet. And I'm in the process of obtaining my license. I am in Illinois, so the requirements to sit for the CPA exam and get your license are a little different, but I have all of my education requirements. I've been working at my company for 5.5 years, and I did do the ethics exam that's required here. So really at this point, all I'm waiting for is my certificate number so that I can apply. And I've heard through Illinois that your license can come pretty quick. So as soon as that's done, I can put those 3 letters, you know, right behind Sarah Marie, and I'm super excited for that. But before I get into the questions, I really quickly want to talk about my CPA journey. So I did get my MBA. That was the first step that I took to get the rest of the education requirements that I needed. And the reason why I did an MBA over an accounting master's degree is a really long story, but basically I just talked to a ton of people and got their recommendations. I talked to my CFO at my company. I talked to my father-in-law who works in, he's the head of HR at a large company, and them along with other people just really stressed that an MBA was more diverse. And so since I already had so much knowledge in accounting, that getting some more diversity in my education would be better. I knew that I wanted to get a master's. That was always something that I wanted to do, but there are lots of other ways that you can get your education requirements if you need to. In Illinois, you need 150 credit hours to even sit for the CPA exam. So that's what I did, and that was a year ago when I graduated. I graduated in May of 2018, and right away I started studying for the CPA. I knew, again, that the quicker I can get it done, the better, because life just gets in the way, and that's just one thing that I've learned, and I wanted to make sure it happened. So the first exam that I took was FAR, and I took that in August of 2018. In September, I found out that I failed. I got a 70%, which is not too bad compared to how I felt walking out of that exam. I took audit in October, and honestly that's mostly just because I started studying for audit right away, right after my FAR exam, so I was already in the process. I was thinking might as well just get this over with. So I took audit in October, I took my retake of FAR in November, and I found out in December that I passed both of those. Both of those I got an 86, not an 86, an 86%, or just an 86. It's not percentage. And so at that point, I knew, okay, let's move on. I was halfway done at that point. So I took BEC next. I found out that I got an 87 on BEC, and then I moved on to Reg, and that's the one that I just passed and got an 86. So I've gotten 3 86s and 1 87. I have no idea how that managed to happen, and I'm honestly a little worried that they're gonna come back to me and say that like it was meant to be a 68 or something. So anyway, that was kind of my journey. It's been an entire year of studying. I know a lot of people can do it way quicker. A lot of people can, you know, it takes a little bit longer. But what I've realized is you have to be flexible with it. My original goal was to finish in 6 months, and it took double that amount of time. So again, just be flexible. And I just thought it would be good to share my story in the very beginning. So on to the questions. The first question was, what was the hardest part preparing for the exam? And I think the hardest part, there's 2 hardest parts. The first one was just learning how to study for the exam, because honestly, it's a little different than other exams. With other exams, especially exams that have a lot of like definitions and stuff, you can kind of wing it. You can't wing it with a CPA exam. You need to know what you're doing, and you might not need to be an expert, but you need to know the basics so you can solve it. The second hardest part of the CPA exam for me was probably the time commitment. As you guys know, I work full time, I have a family, I also have a ton of other side businesses, and so it was hard to make time every single day to study. Although I knew it was really important to do so, sometimes it didn't happen. And so those are probably the hardest two things for me, was just learning how to study in the very beginning and making time for it. Next question. About to finish my undergrad, do I start studying yet or too early? Honestly, I wouldn't start studying until you have the education requirements. So maybe where you are, you can, but for me, I needed the extra 30 credit hours, and it wouldn't have made any difference for me if I started studying when I was done with my bachelor's degree or after, because the material changes so much. Like even when I took FAR the first time or the second time, and then like that following year, a couple months later, FAR was completely different. The material was completely different. So I don't recommend studying until you're like ready to take the exams. Also, please talk parenting. I'm trying to set a good schedule. So for me, I know a lot of people are really confused. Like, how could you possibly do this with a 3-year-old and still make it work and pass? Honestly, I have a really big support system. Jason is a stay-at-home dad. My husband's a stay-at-home dad, so that also helps. I don't really have to worry about Jason's schedule. He was very flexible with me. He was very encouraging. It was obviously my dream, but he's known it's been a dream of mine for so long. Like when we started dating, he knew that I wanted to be a CPA. And so a lot of the things that I normally would have been doing, he picked up the slack for me. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just making sure you have a great support system. And if you don't, try and find another way. If I didn't have Jason, then I probably would have hired a babysitter on the weekends to help out a little bit, because you can't get studying in if you have a toddler next to you trying to play with your computer. And trust me, there's been times where I'm like, okay, it's review time, like every second of the day I need to study. So I was here, Jason and Macy were playing in the living room, I'd be on the computer doing multiple choice questions, and that's just what you have to do. Like, there's sacrifices that have to be made. And luckily I didn't have to make as many as most people because Jason helped out so much. So I don't know if I can really help with that question, because I didn't really have to choose anything. I didn't have to make a ton of sacrifices because Jason was able to help so much. Also, a lot of my studying happened in the morning, so Jason and Macy usually sleep in until like 8:30, 9, and I would be done with studying by then. I woke up so early that I could be here when they woke up, so I wouldn't be missing as much with them. Next question, why did you choose Becker? I chose Becker for a couple of reasons. One, my school, ISU, pushed Becker to the max. When I was getting my undergrad, they brought Becker in. Becker talked to us about their program, talked about the Fast Pass, which was when you would take it for 3 months during the summer, and you should be able to pass the exam during that time. So Becker was always in the back of my mind as a review course because of that. But then there became a time where even one of the CPA review courses reached out to me and wanted to work with me and give me a free class, wanted to give me commission based off of how many people I could get signed up. And I looked at the material and I really considered it, because hey, it's free, I could make money, but it just didn't work for me. And I'm not gonna name names, but their program just wasn't structured the way that my brain worked. And so after I looked into stuff more, I looked at their stuff, I looked again at Becker, because it was a while since I saw Becker stuff, and I just realized Becker is what I need. It's structured the way that my brain works, it has a textbook, the lectures are just thorough, you just go through material and you should be able to pass. That's one thing that I love. Nowadays, Becker, if you get their Becker bundle, it's unlimited. So you don't have to worry about the fact that you have 18 months until the software expires. Now it's unlimited. So that's what I have, and I still have Becker access. I'll have it my entire life. Not that I'll need it, but that is one nice benefit. So honestly, I looked a couple different places just to kind of shop around, and nothing was comparable to Becker. I know it's so expensive. I know that's one downside that a lot of people talk about, but a lot of companies will pay for your review course, so that's something that I had luckily, and I definitely recommend even just asking your company if that's something they'll do. What order do you recommend to take the exams? That's a great question. I honestly think the way that I took them was beneficial for me. I thought taking FAR was great because one, it's the hardest exam, they say, and it just gives you a very good base knowledge of the material that you are gonna see overlap a lot. I really thought, like when I started taking audit, that taking FAR first was a great thing because there was definitely, there's definitely some overlap between FAR and audit. So if I had to redo it again, I would do it the same exact way that I did it. I did FAR first, audit, BEC, and reg. That's what I did. When I did research, I saw a couple different people's study plans out there on the internet, and a lot of people did that same order, and honestly, I thought it worked the best for me. So that's what I would recommend for myself again. So try and do a little bit more research. I know a lot of people put their study plans, calendars, and all kinds of stuff out there. So definitely just do some research. Again, that's what worked for me. Which exam was the most difficult for you and why? Okay, so this is an interesting question because if you're talking about the material being hard or the exam being hard, I think the hardest actual exam was FAR. FAR was definitely the hardest exam, and it's not just because I failed, but it's because there was the most material and it's just a lot of calculations. If you're talking about the hardest material for me, I thought the hardest material was BEC. The business section was definitely hardest for me, and I think it's just because there's so many topics intermingled into this one tiny little textbook that it's overwhelming and it's hard to put topics together and like make sense of it together, if that makes sense. My actual BEC exam was easy. I walked out of it and I'm like, that test was really easy, and I either completely passed it, which it was the highest score that I got on any of the tests, or I totally missed something. So I think that's different. FAR, again, hardest actual exam. I remember thinking like, I actually liked the FAR material. Like going through the material, I didn't think was that hard, but the test was hard. But BEC, the material, I hated, but the exam was really, really easy. I thought the easiest, and this is probably some type of question in here, but I haven't gotten to it yet. The easiest test that I took was audit. And I know a lot of people struggle with it, but that was honestly the easiest test for me and the easiest material to get through. And I'm surprised because I went into it thinking like, I'm gonna hate this. I did not like audit. I did auditing for a while as an internship, and I did not like it. So I thought I was gonna hate it. And it was my favorite section. I remember thinking like, if I have to retake this one, like I'd be okay with that. Okay, haven't watched your videos yet, but what is the best way to tackle the exam testing wise? So my boss told me something after I took my first exam and knew I completely bombed it. And she told me, my next exam, as I'm going through the questions, take each question one by one. Act like each question is its own exam. Don't read through the question, get freaked out, and be like, okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Just take it and think like, okay, let me try my hardest on this question and do my best and then move on. And honestly, every exam after that first exam, I thought of that. I sat there, I took my time, I didn't get stressed if immediately I didn't understand the question, and I passed every exam after that. So I would say the biggest thing is go into it knowing it's gonna be really hard and that there's gonna be questions you're not gonna know. And you may walk out thinking like, I didn't do so well, or I'm not sure, but just try your hardest. Take each question one by one, try not to stress too much, and that's that's how I took all the tests after the last one that I failed. How do you manage to balance studying with working full-time? My study schedule really consisted of this, and I don't just work full-time. I have a family, I also have side businesses. So a typical day for me would look like this. I'd wake up super early in the morning, probably like 4:50. I would get ready really quickly and study for like 2 to 3 hours in the morning. Then I would work. During lunch, I may study a little bit more depending on how much I got done, or I would do YouTube stuff, film videos in my car, run errands if we need stuff at Target, or maybe even just relax depending on the day. I'd get home, Macy would still be sleeping, so I could study a little bit more, or film videos, or work on stickers, and then Macy would be up around 5:30, and then I was done. I was with her until she went to bed, and then around 9:30 or so, I would do more stuff. But the biggest thing for me with getting studying done was to make sure it was done in the morning. If I didn't get done in the morning, my entire day was off. So I definitely recommend, if you're not a morning person, try to be a morning person. I don't drink coffee anymore. I legit haven't drank coffee in a couple weeks, and I drank coffee for almost that entire year because that's what I needed. I needed to drink coffee so I could get up early, and it worked. So that was the biggest thing for me. What is the best way to gauge if you know enough to do well on the exam? That's a great question. For me, I have done a couple things. I always made sure to take a mock exam a couple days before my exam. This is mostly just to give me practice and to have my body sit down for like 3 to 4 hours at a time, because that's hard. That's hard for me to sit still and sit in one space for that long. Mock exams for me have not been very representative of my actual scores, and I know there's like this website that has an Excel spreadsheet of a bunch of people's mock exam scores and their real test scores, and I'm gonna tell you, they're way different. I took BEC and I got a 55% on my mock exam, and I ended up getting an 87 on my actual exam. That just goes to show you that it's not truly representative, and I don't think it's Becker's fault at all. I think the problem is you're never going to take it like a real exam unless it's the real exam and you have something to lose, which is to have to take it again. Every mock exam that I took, I would try, but my heart wasn't all the way in it, and I can't lie, it wasn't. When I took the reg mock exam, my heart was not in it. I rushed through it, I made stupid mistakes, and I got a 54. I ended up getting an 86 on my actual exam. So I always took them, but I don't think that's a good gauge. A good gauge would be to take as many multiple choice questions as you possibly can and see consistently where you're at. Last time I was doing that with reg, I was always high 70s, low 80s, that type of range for scores. So I think multiple choice questions are where it's at. That's how you can gauge it. And that's how I really knew if I needed to start doing the final review, is because I would kind of go through multiple choice questions and I wasn't doing so well. So I'm like, you know what? I obviously don't know the material well. I need a review, and that's when I would do the final review. What is the best strategy for the final 3 to 4 days leading up to the exam? Okay, so that's kind of what I've already talked about, but I'll go into it a little bit more. So I would say 2 days, 4 days before my exam. So 4 to 3 days before my exam, I'm still doing multiple choice questions as much as I possibly can. 2 days before my exam, I do the mock exam. And I don't just do the mock exam. I do the mock exam in the morning, I take a break. I come home, I play with Macy, we clean the house, we do whatever. And then after I cool down, kind of relax a little bit, then I go each question by question through my mock exam and see what I got wrong and why. I take notes, I just go through those questions like my life depended on it. and that's the second day. That's the, you know, 2 days before my exam. The day right before my exam, I don't do any multiple choice questions. I don't do any questions. All I do is I go through my notes or go through the book and just go page by page and just kind of refresh my memory. Because if I took multiple choice questions the day before the exam, I would miss a ton because I'd be so stressed, and I would psych myself out for the next day. So that's kind of what I did. Again, you asked 3 to 4 days. So the day before my exam, I would go through my notes or the textbook. 2 days before my exam, I would do the mock exam and then go question by question and review what I got wrong, what I got right, take notes. And then the 3 to 4 days before my exam, that's when I'm still doing multiple choice questions. So hopefully that helps. How to take well-organized notes as the material seems overwhelming due to volume. So what I did is I followed along with Becker and took notes in my textbook. After I would do that, I would normally watch the skills practice the skills practice, you know, the questions they have within there, and then I would take my notes at that point. Now at that point, I would go through my notes that are in my book and just remember what seemed to really stand out a lot. And I would try to organize them so that it made sense to me, because the textbook didn't always make sense to me. Sometimes they would structure things that I'm like, this is not important at all. There's a whole paragraph they didn't even talk about. So I don't need to know that. I just want to make my notes as condensed as possible and just make it make sense to me. So I didn't follow through and take notes exactly the way that it was in the book. I would try and take them so they made sense to me. I used a lot of highlighters and I used a lot of different colored pens so that main topics would stick out. So if you're talking about like tax basis versus accrual basis or something, I'd write that in a different color when I started my notes on that, and then I'd write in like black for the remaining whatever. Sometimes if I forgot something, I would add a sticky note to that same section, or I'd use a different color pen just to like really make something stand out. So I think for me at least, well-organized notes really started by like thinking about what was important and not just, you know, taking notes based off of like everything they talked about or everything that was in the book, and then trying to organize it so that it made more sense to me. So using different color pens so things would stand out, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that helps. Can you show a pic of all of the notebooks you used for all 4 parts? How many total? Okay, so for BEC, I used 1 notebook. For audit, I used 1. For reg, I used 2. And for FAR, I used 2. So 2, I used 6 notebooks total. I don't have them with me, so I would show them, but I don't have them with me. They're all from Erin Condren. If you go back and watch some of my videos, you guys will see them. They're even in my thumbnails, I'm sure. But I don't think the notebooks mean as much. Like, the notes definitely helped me, but don't gauge like, oh, if I have 6 notebooks, then I'm gonna do okay. Like, it just matters depending on how much you really like how much you're getting from the material, if that makes sense. Did you find the flashcards and supplemental multiple choice questions useful / helpful? Congrats, by the way. I didn't use the flashcards at all. I didn't use the physical ones that I had. I didn't use the ones online. For me, that did not help me with the CPA exam. I used them for FAR the first time a little bit, but honestly, it was just busy work for me, and I realized the main thing for me, again, I try and stress this so much, and again, find what works for you, but for me, the main thing that worked, like the thing that like I knew if I did well on these that I would pass, would be the multiple choice questions. If I did well on those, that was it. For me, the flashcards just didn't do it. It didn't teach me anything. It was just like, I don't know, just busy work for me. The supplemental multiple choice questions I did get and I did use. I use them for almost every section. It's just nice when you start getting repeat questions a lot to have something different. And if you get final review from Becker, there are other multiple choice questions and simulations that you have along with that. So I have lots of multiple choice questions. I see so many people on my Facebook groups of, you know, my CPA Facebook group saying like, oh, I have Becker and I have this other review course. And I saw somewhere someone posted this and I'm like, this is totally right. All you need is one review course. You do not need any supplemental multiple choice questions. You don't need, you know, two. They're going to cover it enough that you are going to pass. You just have to put in the work. Don't think that like a bunch of different CPA review courses is going to mean that you passed. I used Becker, that was it, and I passed every section. So that's the main thing that I think is really useful to know, because when I first started, I saw a bunch of people saying that and I'm like, do I need more? Like, is Becker not enough? Becker is enough. Any review course that you have will be enough. It's just finding out how to study, really. That's the biggest thing. Someone said everything, and I wish I could help with that, but unfortunately I don't know everything. I'm having a hard time balancing life and studying. Tips or tricks? I think the main thing, again, is just trying to get it out of the way in the morning. The other thing is, if the morning isn't for you, I think the bigger thing is finding what time during the day you study best. And remember that you probably want to also schedule your exam for that time. So for me, I knew in the morning my mind is the most fresh. Every time I studied in the morning, things went smoothly. Every time I try to study at night or even during lunch, I'm like, what is this? Like, I don't get this. And so I made sure to schedule my exams at 8 a.m. every single morning because I knew my brain would be fresh, it would be ready to go. So I think the biggest thing is just try and get your studying done earlier in the day if you can. If you're not a morning person, if you can't study during the morning, then just make time for it. Say like, okay, I'm gonna study between 4 and 6 and just study during that time. Don't make exceptions unless you have to. And if you have to, make sure you make another. So like I was saying, just make sure that you make another time to study. Okay, I already answered which was the least hardest among them. I thought audit was really easy, but I think it really just depends on how much experience you have and your mindset. For me, I went into FAR and audit and reg knowing it was gonna be hard. And audit surprised me because it really wasn't that hard for me. But I went into BEC thinking like, oh, this is gonna be easy. Like, I'm glad I can get this done right now. And it was the hardest for me because I just had the wrong mindset. So I think you should just go into it thinking they're all gonna be hard and that it's gonna be a lot of work, and just try your hardest. Did you ever doubt yourself as an accountant when not grasping a topic? I'm struggling with FAR. Not really. I know that most people take the CPA exam and it takes many, many times to pass. My mother-in-law was an accountant. She took the CPA exam a couple times back in the day when you had to take 4 parts at one time, and she didn't pass them. So I know a lot of accountants who are accountants who don't have their CPA, and I know there's a reason for that. It's because it's hard. So I never let, like, even when I failed FAR, I never let that discourage me because I know that's the reality of it. If it was easy, then everybody would do it and everybody would have the CPA. So I never doubted myself. I knew that it just took time. I just needed to learn the material and it just would take time to do that. What type of computer do you recommend for grad school and CPA programs? Honestly, I don't think it matters a ton. I have a MacBook. I have the rose gold MacBook and I love it. But I honestly don't think that it really matters. I love Macs. I have only had Macs my entire life. Well, my own computer my entire life. My parents had Dells. They seem to always have viruses, so I don't recommend those, but the next question is, do you listen to music when you study? What kind? What's the best for focusing? I do not listen to music when I study. I can't. I don't. I put my headphones in even if I'm not listening to the lecture, just to like block out noise. Which is funny because I do listen to music when I work. If I'm not listening to music when I'm working, I feel weird. Every day I listen to music all day while I'm working. But for studying, when you have to like read or really concentrate, I can't. Which sounds weird because I have to concentrate at work, but I can't listen to music. So I can't help you there. Can you send the books to me? So I actually already got rid of my books. I got rid of my books maybe the day or two after I passed my exams. And honestly, it's just because my office is getting a little overwhelming with how crowded it's getting. So I got rid of my books. I still have my notes. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my notes quite yet. But my books are pretty much all outdated except for I think 1 or 2 of them. So I donated them to a local bookstore. So hopefully, you know, people around, if they need some CPA books or just wanna get an idea of what accounting is, they can use that. So I don't have my books, unfortunately. Do you always do the unit simulations before moving on to the next unit? Yes. I always did I always did all the multiple choice. Why can't I talk today? I always did the multiple choice questions and I always did the simulations at the very end. And I made sure to do those before moving on. Although I have to say, I didn't focus a ton on them. I would try, I would get some wrong, I would look at the answer, try and figure out why I got it wrong. And then I would put in, you know, the answer based off that. But I didn't put a ton of weight on them, and I think that was the best choice because the simulations aren't going to teach you the material. The multiple choice questions will, and the simulations are just so specific, what they ask, and you're never going to get that same question on a real exam. So I never stressed the simulations. I never practiced them. Like once I did them and got through 1 chapter, that was it. I never practiced the simulations again unless I was doing a mock exam. For me, they didn't matter. I realized that very quickly. I definitely struggled with FARS simulations on both my exams, but really if you know the material, the simulations are just another way of answering the question. Could you discuss a step-by-step study day for reg? Was it 1 lectures, 2 notes, etc.? So for reg and for every section that I took, this is what I did. Of course I had Becker, so we had chapters, and then within the chapters you had modules. So let's say I'm working on the first module of the first chapter. What I would do is I would watch the lecture. While I'm watching the lecture, I would take notes in my textbook. After I would do that, after I'd get through the whole lecture and all of the notes in the textbook that they tell you to take, I would do the skills practice. The skills practice has another small lecture, and then it has kind of a simulation at the very end. It's smaller, but it's kind of like a simulation. After that, depending on how I felt, so step 1, lecture and notes in textbook. Step 2, skills practice. Step 3 would kind of vary. It just depends. If I felt confident about the material and those 2 first steps helped, then I would take my notes. If not, then sometimes I would go on to the multiple choice questions, try the multiple choice questions, and just get an idea of what material really was important in that section. So normally what happened is this is how it would go. 1, lecture and take notes in my textbook. 2, skills practice. 3, my own notes in my own separate notebook. 4 would be multiple choice questions. And then I would start all over again with another module. In reg, I would try to get 1 module done per day. So all 4 of those steps done in 1 day. That was it. That's all I did. It was not very hard, and honestly, it just kind of goes along with the way that Becker structures their material. A lot of questions about which exam was the hardest for you. What are you doing now that you passed the CPA, like career-wise? So like I said, the next step for me would be to get my license. So that's kind of something that I'm waiting to do. As soon as I can get my license, then I can move on and put that after my name and just have the official title of CPA. Career-wise, I don't know yet. I'm definitely not studying for anything else. I do work in insurance, so there are lots and lots and lots of certifications that you can get in insurance, but honestly, I already have the one that matters for me at my company, so that's not something that I want to do. Honestly, the biggest thing is I want to move up. I want to be a manager. I obviously have my MBA, I have my CPA now, and I want to move up. The thing is though, my company is very flat. There's not a ton of opportunities in my company. So in the meantime, I'm trying to focus a little bit more on my family and not worry a ton about moving up right away. I'm going to wait a little bit and see if there's any opportunities and then figure out what I'm going to do. I honestly don't think, and I don't know, but I honestly don't see many opportunities at my current company, which is disappointing because for the longest time, as I was going through school and doing all of this, I thought there would be opportunities, and I've just recently noticed that there's just not. So I don't know what the future holds. That's basically the answer. We will see. But for right now, I'm not trying to make any crazy moves or anything like that because I'm trying to focus a little bit more on my family since I've been MIA for so long. Okay, we're gonna get through a couple more of these questions and then we're going to finish up. And again, if you have more questions, then ask down below. A lot of questions about selling my books. Sorry, they're gone. Would you change the order you took the exams? If so, what would the order be? I wouldn't. I honestly think it set me up well enough that everything kind of flowed well together and made sense. The thing is, for me at least, again, I thought audit had a lot of repeat information that I learned in FAR. BEC as well. There's actually a lot of equations and things that you need to know from FAR. So I think doing that order was great. The other thing is I personally think putting FAR and Reg together is not a good idea. They're two huge exams, tons of material, and Reg is all about tax basis. So if you are really good at FAR and accrual basis, and you're getting those two mixed up, it's gonna be complicated. It's gonna be real complicated. The nice thing is FAR was so far out of my mind by that point that I didn't have any problem just thinking of it in tax basis. So that's the main thing. So again, I recommend, if I was gonna do it again, I would definitely do FAR, audit, BEC, and Reg. I think that's the best route. When studying using online materials, do you think it'd be helpful to use or to own a second monitor? I use a second monitor at work, and I definitely love a second monitor for working. However, when you are at the CPA Exam Center, and I think this is really important to note, when you're studying, you want it to be as similar to the actual exam as possible. The actual exam, you have one monitor, and very similar to Becker, the screens are not that big. You can't make things bigger. I'm talking more about like the simulations. So you don't want to practice on two screens if that's not what you're gonna have in the real exam. I have to say, so with the two monitors, I don't recommend owning a second one just for the exam. But if you're doing it for work or whatever, then yes, I like that idea. But along with that, I never practiced even the mock exams using the online calculator because you don't need, if you know how to use a calculator, you don't need to practice using the online one or the one through the software. You're gonna do it on the exam day, it'll be fine, but if you wanna use your phone or if you wanna use a regular calculator when you're practicing problems, it's fine. But the second monitor thing, like you won't be able to do that in the real exam, so I wouldn't do it for anything else. How did you find time to do things around the house? Did your husband have to help a lot? So again, my situation is very different because Jason's a stay-at-home dad. So a lot of the things that I don't mean this in a stereotypical way, but even people that I encounter in my normal, like my friends, my family, make questions and comments like this, and it's crazy to me because we're living in almost 2020. Like why are these concepts still a thing? But anyway, I've had comments like, you don't cook? You don't clean up the kitchen? Like, no. Me and Jason split duties pretty evenly. And honestly, I do a lot of the housework even when I'm busy, because that's just, we split it up a long time ago. That's the thing. So Jason cooks, Jason cleans, Jason goes grocery shopping. That's the stuff that Jason does. He cleans the kitchen. We both clean up common spaces, so like the living room area. I do all the laundry. Jason never does laundry. I clean the bathrooms. I clean Macy's room. But Jason does all the cooking and cleaning in the kitchen, which is the main chore, I think. Like on a daily basis, that stuff has to get done. The bathrooms, when I was studying sometimes like the bathrooms would not get cleaned for a while. And I even talked to Jason, I'm like, during that time, I'm like, maybe we should hire somebody, because I feel bad that I'm not doing it, but I don't have time to do it. And Jason could have done it. Like, it wasn't that bad. I always got to it, but it was always longer than what I normally would get to it. And so, honestly, I would just get to it when I could. I didn't stress too much about it. If I couldn't get stuff done one week, like, it happened later. And me and Jason did start this new thing where every night for like 10 minutes before bed, we would clean up a little bit, and that definitely helped. But sometimes we had no laundry. Sometimes the bathrooms desperately needed to be cleaned, and we were both busy. Like, Jason's taking care of Macy, I'm studying. Like, just try not to be too hard on yourself. And again, I'm so grateful that I have Jason, because he's really helpful. He's super supportive. He understands. He always understood if, like, you know, if he's like, well, I guess I'm turning my underwear on, inside out. Like, he made light of the situation. He knew it wasn't gonna be forever. And so now things are getting to be a little bit more normal, but just give yourself grace and just remember that it's gonna be a short time. If your house isn't perfect, it's okay. But yeah, he did help a lot, because that's kind of like, he's a stay-at-home dad. So that's one of the perks of him not going into work, is that he's here with Macy. So when she's napping, he can get stuff done and all of that. Should I study the CPA while getting my bachelor's? And she said, single mom. I don't think you should, because again, if you're not gonna take the exam a month or two after you study, then there's really no point. The material is gonna change, and it's just gonna be really stressful. I never ever imagined starting to study for the CPA exam while I was still studying anything. I wouldn't have taken it during my bachelor's degree. I definitely wouldn't have taken during my master's. It's just too much, and especially if you're a mom, like, that's a lot. It's definitely a good goal. I definitely recommend having a goal of taking the CPA exam, and I was a mom, like, you know, I don't think that it's impossible to do if you're a parent. It's gonna be a little bit harder if you don't have support, but I definitely recommend waiting until you're ready to take the exams and when you have more time, because if you're trying to do schoolwork, being a mom, it's gonna be hard to also study for the CPA exam. Last question, and then I'm gonna end it here. Timeline of when you took each exam, when you started studying, and how many hours total. So I get a lot of questions about how many hours I study. And when I first started studying, I actually started noting down how many hours per day I was studying, like even like to the minute. Like, I studied 2 hours and 25 minutes. And then I started realizing that it was a waste of time to do that, because what does it matter? Like, I was doing it honestly so I could tell you guys, but it was wasting time. It was kind of stressing me out thinking about how much time it was taking. So I stopped doing that. But my timeline was always the same for every exam. I gave myself 1 week per chapter. So for FAR, there were 10. There were 10 chapters, 12 chapters, whatever. Let's say reg. For reg, there was 8 chapters. I normally would have given myself 8 weeks to get through the material, and then 2 weeks at the very end to do a review. So in total, 10 weeks. That was always my goal. When I had to restudy for FAR, I gave myself 6 weeks to restudy. But that was always my goal. Again, just 1 chapter a week. So it just depends on how many you know, how long it takes you to get through the chapters. Sometimes the chapters would be easy. I would get through all of the multiple choice questions and everything like that pretty quickly. Of course, Becker and a lot of CPA review courses have like a recommended amount of time to study, but honestly, I never really paid attention to that. It doesn't matter. If you know the material, you know the material. If it takes you longer to learn it, it takes you longer. If it takes you shorter, it takes you shorter. Keeping track of the time or trying to schedule it like, okay, I'm gonna have 3 hours in the morning every morning, so that'll be a total of this amount of hours, so it should be fine, I should be able to get through it all. Honestly, it doesn't work like that, because sometimes there's longer lectures. Sometimes you really don't get the material and you have to go through your notes again. Sometimes it takes a really short amount of time to get through the multiple choice questions. I remember there are some times where it says it was gonna take me 50 minutes to get through the multiple choice questions, and I get through the multiple choice questions in like 5 minutes. Like, it was like super easy. But then if you're taking notes, which is where most of my time went, seriously, I was so frustrated sometimes. I'd take my notes and it would take me hours to take notes, just because I wanted to like really understand the material. I was trying to write nicely so it wasn't just a bunch of like chicken scratch. And so again, that was kind of my process. I would take 1 chapter per week, and then I'd have 2 weeks of a review at the very end. But besides that, I didn't focus a ton on the time, because it really doesn't matter. If I knew the material, I knew it. If I didn't, I had to study more. But I know that's probably not what you're looking for, but again, I tried not to focus so much on it, because it didn't really matter. Like, if you knew it, you knew it. So that's where I'm going to stop today. Again, if you guys have more questions, let me know. I have sheets and sheets and sheets more questions, so I will eventually get to them. But again, if you have questions, leave them down below, and I'll definitely do another one of these, and all of that fun stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys have any questions, again, leave them down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.